Hello, we're talking today with Marco Greco in Italy, all the way from Italy. Marco recently published one of the finest articles about serious games that I've read in a very long time. So I wanted to introduce him to members of the serious games community and to students at Elmhurst College and have him talk a little bit about his work.
Thank you
Marco,
very
welcome.
much, and thank you for your interest.
So I wonder if we could start, Marco, with you telling us about yourself and your collaborators, what kinds of work you do, and where you are located.
Well, I am an assistant professor in business engineering at the University of Cassino in southern Lazio. It's just down Rome. It's like 100 kilometers under Rome. And my research activities include business gaming, negotiation, open innovation, strategic management, also electronic commerce, something also on electronic commerce. Nicola Baldissin, a co-author of the article, is an Italian business game developer. He works in Udine, it is in the northern part of Italy. And Fabio Nonino is an assistant professor at the University La Sapienza, Rome. Yes, that's all.
Yeah.
I'm here in Casino. I've been here in Casino in the last 2 years. Uh, that's all.
It seems like the three of you have produced an extremely useful and thoughtful piece on serious games. Am I to understand that serious games are an important subject in Europe and in Italy in particular?
Of course it is. And in specifically, we have been very interested in business gaming, and that is because I am a business engineer, and my research interests cover several areas of business. And in addition, when I was a student, I had the opportunity of playing several business games, and I had so much fun with them that I started being interested in how to develop a business game. And in fact, I was so interested in the topic that in my thesis, I presented a novel business game about negotiation that I developed with a friend of mine at the time. The business game is still alive, still working, and it has been improved in the last 6 years. Um, so business gaming is very interesting to us. Serious game is a topic that in Europe is increasing quite quickly in the literature and in among the developers community too. Just 4 years ago, Italy had just few business games developed by Italians and available in Italian language, and the number is increasing actually.
Yeah. Now, in Italian, do you use the term serious games or is there an Italian translation of that?
Now, serious game is fine.
Serious games. Now, you limited your research, at least in the article, to business games and simulations, and you said why. That's your background.
Yeah.
Do you feel that serious games for business have some unique properties that are different from other categories, or would you say that what you point out about serious games might well apply to other categories as well?
Oh, no, I don't think that business games is much different from other categories of serious gaming. Serious gaming is used on a wide range of topics and can be useful for in different categories of learning. I'm just interested in business gaming because I teach topics about business, and
Right.
so I like to have instruments, tools to improve my lessons and to let the student practice some in specific improve their specific skills. For example, I teach negotiation in my course of in business management, and I make my students play with the manager in order to improve their negotiation skills and to practice with the tactics that I am teaching them. And I think this is a big deal, and it's very important because we are living in a world in which our students are the so-called digital natives. And so, if you use only traditional learning means, they will not get everything.
Right. And you use that term practice, and there are theories of learning, deliberate practice, for example, that tell us that you learn more through practice and you develop greater proficiency through practice than, say, sitting in a lecture hall or reading a book. That the
Yeah,
practice itself, just by virtue of the sharpening of your skills and your awareness, increases your retention, increases your knowledge.
yeah. I think that the two parts are very important, both of them, because you cannot. Somebody says the theory is not important. You have to practice. You have to do it on the job. No, but I think that you have to know the rules of the game before. And so you have to know the theoretical aspects of a subject before practicing with it.
Right.
And so that I think that the two things together are very important, while one alone is not enough.
Right. Now, I will ask students to read your taxonomy, and for those who view this video who are not students of mine, I encourage them to read the taxonomy too. It's wonderful, wonderful piece of writing.
Thank you very much.
Why did you write it, though? What did you want people to do with this? Well, first, before that question, why did you write the taxonomy? Did you feel there was a gap that you were trying to fill?
Well, when I started working on this taxonomy, I had a vision that I shared with Nicola and Fabio. And my goal was to create a collaborative worldwide directory of business games. The idea is that academics, developers, players should be able to fill in a detailed but rigorous form for each business game and discuss about the game and its characteristics and even reviewing it. A directory like this would be very helpful both for potential customers like MBAs and companies, both for developers who may understand what is missing in the global offer of business games. But before starting this directory, a taxonomy is needed. You have to understand what are the characteristics of the relevant characteristics of a business game that you want to highlight, that you want to be inside this imaginary form that people should fill in. And of course, before before creating this directory, I need the taxonomy to be accepted and refined by the community. And
Now, if I remember correctly, you do say in the article that there were one or two attempts at a taxonomy before your work, and I think you updated some of that scholarship, and then you added some new things of your own.
yeah,
So I infer from this that you felt that the work in a taxonomy of serious games that had been done before your article was not sufficient, and you needed to bring it up to date.
were not so specific. I wanted the taxonomy to be specific for business games because I imagine that business games are an industry. You know, it's a field in which you can have a demand and an offer, and these two aspects, demand and offer, are not matching that much. You know, you want to teach a specific skill to your human resources, and you at the moment it's difficult for you to know that there is somewhere in the world a business game that covers that need. And so my challenge was to create some place in the web in which demand and offer are matched.
Right. Now, the if I'm going to recap what I think I learned from you just now, that your ultimate goal is a directory of serious games, a global directory. So whether the game comes from Asia or Europe or the
Yeah,
Americas, you want all serious games in this directory for
I
business,
would like business games.
serious games for business.
Yeah, serious games.
And as a first step towards that goal, you created a taxonomy so that
Mm-hmm.
you would be able to categorize or classify the different kinds of games so people could engage with them more coherently.
Right.
Otherwise, you would face a mountain of different game titles and wouldn't know what to do with it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this directory, that's your ultimate goal. Let me ask you a question about that. Aren't most games for business done for private use, like a corporation will use them? I know many are done in universities and colleges as well. But in any case, most games perhaps have a private ownership about them, and access to them is constrained, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if a good game, has been produced by a company,
Mm-hmm.
how would you get these privately owned games into your directory? Would you be able? Is the directory just a listing of games, or is it actual access to the game so you can play it?
A listing.
A
It
listing.
should be, it should be a listing of games, and it should allow to a person interested in that game to know that that game exists, and to know that he can keep in touch with the developer of that game and arrange an agreement about that topic, and so create a competition on the basis of that business game.
Okay. Okay, I understand then. So the directory is a kind of catalog, and it
Yeah,
promotes
yeah. A
promotes.
worldwide catalog, and
Oh,
it's very. Before my article, I saw that some authors tried to create a small catalog of business games at their times, and I think that this challenge is overwhelming at the moment because um, often the developers do not care about the indexing of their business game on Google, for example, or on a search engine. And so it's very difficult to find out what are the business games that actually exist that at the moment can be used in all around the world. And you may have business games that are provided in a language that is not your own. For example, I could not find a business game in French language, no? But the developer might want to translate the structure of the game for a customer interested in his or her game. And so this directory could be very important for the industry of business gaming.
and will the directory encompass both digital and traditional forms of games, such as board games?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Okay. Yeah, because so oftentimes the discussion about serious games implies that serious games are roughly as new as video games, when in fact, serious games for business have a much longer history than that. And even today, serious games for business
Mhm.
done off the computer are still used quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
Often,
tell me about the work that you did to make this taxonomy come together. Uh, has the effort taken you a long time and a lot of work?
yeah, definitely a lot of work. You have to consider that I contacted Nicola. I proposed working on this taxonomy to Nicola. It was, I think, 2008.
Wow.
And in 2008, I proposed to Nicola to cooperate together in preparing a taxonomy for business games. And then we added to the team also Fabio Nonino. And it took 3 years to submit the article to the journal. and another 2 years to make it published. The first challenge has been understanding what is a business game. And business games developed by academics or specialized private developers face the competition of challenging amusement game about business or management, which are developed without any ambition of teaching business skills or properly simulating a real competitive environment. For example, I had a lot of fun playing Railroad Tycoon, and I became very skilled in the game, but I do not think that I would have been able to manage a real railroad company.
Right.
So the point is Railroad Tycoon a business game or not? And this is the first point to create a taxonomy and a directory. What is important to a game to make it being a business game? So
And
we chose a definition.
and to promote learning, right? Because you
Yeah.
can be entertained or amused by a game for business, but if it's not teaching you something useful about operating a business or starting a business or selling a business, then it doesn't really qualify as serious. It's more of another form of entertainment.
Yes, that's our opinion about it.
Right.
To be clearer, if you play a game such as a Doom, a fighting game
Yeah.
that does not involve any business,
Right.
you can actually gain some skills that are useful in business. You
Yes.
can you can become very skilled in sensing risks or something like that. But you are not supposed to learn business,
Right.
and so that is not a business game.
Right. I would say another peripheral skill you could pick up is how to negotiate with competitors or maybe eliminate competitors because of your gaming skills,
Hmm.
which are not
Yeah.
business skills per se. So it sounds like one of the biggest challenges in getting started in this long trajectory of getting the article to where it is now was you had to be sure you had a definition of a business game that was strong and solid, and you could build this
Yes.
taxonomy on. And I think you did that, by the way. I think it's very good.
Thank you very much.
Um, the
Oh,
yeah,
yes, and when we chose the definition, starting from it, we created the taxonomy. Also, starting from the taxonomies that you cited before and that we cite in the article, that are excellent taxonomies for
yeah,
games in general or serious games. Then a reviewer asked us to make examples because our taxonomy was very theoretical. Theoretical, no, we had the items of the taxonomy, but we made a few examples,
yeah.
no? And one of the reviewers asked us to make examples to clarify each item of the taxonomy, and it took several months to complete the article in order to accomplish with the requests.
Yes. I've recently been reading a wonderful book called Systems Thinking and Modeling. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
And it does show some examples of some brilliant game simulations for business where the interface is not at all your typical video game interface. It's really
Hmm.
more of a control panel where you get the business enterprise is abstracted into a dashboard, and you get to manage the business by manipulating variables through the dashboard. So it makes it possible, for example, to practice running a business without having to go to the trouble of creating a 3D environment, for example, where you have characters and stores and warehouses and so forth.
Yeah.
Very instructive. Now, you probably discovered a few things in addition to what is a business game as you did this. So, what stands out for you now that you've got the taxonomy in print? I know that there's going to be more work, but now that you've got it to this point after all these years, what would you say were some of the big discoveries that you made in your own mind and your collaborators about serious games for business that you didn't really have top of mind earlier?
Mhm. Um, Two aspects. The first case, this article allowed me to know many business games from all over the world that I didn't know at all. And I've been helped in this by the reviewers that suggested me business games to be involved in the examples. They asked me to apply the taxonomy to them in order to clarify the taxonomy itself. It has been a very interesting activity. Um, Another aspect, in addition, the taxonomy, the article in general, made me understand that business games are still far away from the amusement game industry in terms of technology and openness. For example, I could not be able to find any open source business game.
None.
Not, I could not find any business game open source, and I could not find any real community of players or developers. I'm not talking about an official Facebook page in which players of the game chat together and say something about the game. I'm talking about lively communities in which people can cooperate to improve the game or to improve their capability to play the game and to have fun together and so on. And at the moment, I could not find any community of business game players or developers so lively. And it surprised me because when I created the taxonomy, the aspects about relations I thought that I was going to find out something about this, and I've been very surprised by this.
I'm taking from what you're saying that you believe that playing a serious game for business as a member of a larger community is important to the learning because if you're playing it in isolation or just in a small group, you don't
Hmm.
have the benefit of learning from other players or competing in a larger arena. Is that
And this is not only this aspect. I think that the creation of a community is a proxy of the quality of the game. So if you have many players that want to share together how much they like and playing that business game, that might be a great business game. It is worth for the it should be worth for these people to create a community about business games, about that business game. And the fact that a community like this does not exist uh, makes me think that maybe there is no business game so involving, so amusing that people want to share their fun outside the game.
do you think that is a problem? Is the lack of this kind of engagement that comes from being entertained or enjoying the game? Is that an impediment to learning? Do you think?
I don't think that is an impediment to learning, but I think that the lack of communities like this is an opportunity for developers. Developers should see this lack, should see that there is a need for creating communities.
Right.
And our world is community, is community based. Social networks are spreading all around the world. And how can you think that your teaching tool is outside these dynamics?
Right. You know, I'm aware as you're speaking about this that there's a fairly energetic organization called Games for Change,
Mm-hmm.
and there's another one, Games for Health.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not aware of a group that's called Games for Business, which is, having meetings and publishing papers and bringing people together. Are you aware that there's such a
I
group?
am aware just of a journal that is simulation and gaming that has um, um, an area dedicated to business games, but
Right,
it is not a community.
right, right, right. Interesting. Okay. Well, let me go to the question of efficacy. I shared the taxonomy with a scientist who works for the U.S. Government contractor, and I told him I thought this was a great article. Have a look. And he said, "It's a great article. Thank you very much, but I have one problem with it," he
Mm-hmm.
said. He said, "It tells me all about serious games for business, except why I should care." In other words, the taxonomy does not go into the efficacy
Yeah.
of games for business. So it's almost like we develop a much better focus on what has been done, and but we're not really clear on what difference it has made. And on a personal level, I've had exposure to some critics of serious games who are quite verbal in saying, there's all this hoopla, all this excitement about games and learning, but show me the proof, show me the evidence that it actually makes a difference. So if we can address that question for a moment, given that the taxonomy does not attempt to justify serious games for business as an effective learning
Mm-hmm.
tool, do you feel that there is evidence for that?
Well, my very first scientific article, which I presented at the European Conference on Game-Based Learning in 2007, discussed the capability of a business game to improve the negotiation skills of players. And also, in a more recent article, I studied the relation between women managers' scores and players' reputation, and finding out that win-win negotiators are more likely to be successful in the game. Also, in 2009, I discussed the use of role-playing in learning, and which has been found to be effective for some non-technical topics and less effective for technical ones. I think that each serious game should be analyzed in order to understand its power to promote learning and performance. Although this is often a very difficult task. Think about evaluating soft skills such as team building. There are several business games and in which the developer says, "Oh, my business game is useful to develop leadership and team building in players." And proving that this is true is so difficult. I think it's almost impossible. Um, and this is a very, very big problem because you can measure only certain skills. And the business games or the serious games that are meant to improve that specific skills can be measured in their efficacy.
Right.
Art serious games are an act of faith. You have to test them and feel if you if you feel improved in those soft skills. But I understand the critic of your colleague because it's true. If I pay for something, I want to know if it works or not. Uh,
Yes. There's that. My rejoinder has sometimes been, look, there's plenty of evidence that non-game based learning does not work. So if you're telling me you're not going to consider an alternative to something that doesn't work until you're sure it does work, I say, I'm not sure I understand the rationale, because even if I can't prove to you that it will be better, there's a chance that it will be better, and there isn't much chance that it will be worse. So, but the leap of faith, I think you use that term, and it's very well chosen, because up until the present time, and I think even with the taxonomy as a big foundation of assisting our understanding, we still have to believe and go with our belief versus be convinced like a jury in a courtroom that, yes, this works and I know it works. Let me just bring up one other issue to you and then go on to the next question. I think a large benefit of gaming and simulation is not only a serious gaming and simulation, is not only in endowing players with skills and knowledge, but also in learning about the business process that they are practicing. And the simulation or the game, if it is properly designed, can produce new insights into the way a business process is designed and how it works, and how human beings that participate in it can control it or fail to control it. So in other words, I think the serious game can be a research tool, a very practical research tool, giving data back to the company saying, now that we understand why people are failing when they play the game, maybe that tells us something about what opportunities we're missing outside of training, outside of gaming, in the real world. So I think there's that possible second dimension of value that the serious game provides to a sponsor.
I do agree with you.
Yeah. So where do you go from here? You've got this wonderful article, and I know that you say in the article about the work that's to come, and you alluded to the directory. So can you talk a little bit about what's coming and what you would like others to help you with if you need some input?
Okay. At the moment, I am waiting for feedbacks like yours. Your feedback is very nice, but I'm also waiting for bad feedbacks, or for feedbacks saying you can improve the taxonomy by editing specific items or categories, because this is the way to have a solid taxonomy that is accepted widely by the community. And if you have an accepted taxonomy, you can start to creating the directory. And after having the taxonomy fixed, I will be keen to cooperate with international partners in the development of the directory. And it will be a very challenging goal, and I think that this is an international challenging goal. So I don't think that I can take it on my shoulder alone. Everybody from many parts of the world should take care of creating this common knowledge, just like a Wikipedia of business gaming.
Right. Very interesting. I could make one small suggestion for the taxonomy as you take it forward before you get to the directory. No, I think this is more about the directory design. You said earlier that it's very difficult to gain access to different serious games, and I feel that's probably because of the proprietary nature of the games. The companies or the organizations that own them don't want to share them because they consider them assets. And then in the case of government, a lot of serious games are done in the United States for the U.S. military, and many of those are going to be classified. You're not going to have access to those unless you have a government clearance. And so these kinds of fences prevent people from actually seeing and trying and learning from the game itself. And that constraint may not go away. However, I think people still benefit a lot from thumbnail views of what a game interface looks like as you're explaining the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book I mentioned earlier, that's an example of doing that. They show you just some diagrammatic, schematic uh, screen captures, screenshots of what the player of the game sees as they describe the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this still visual is not a surrogate for actually playing and understanding the sensation of play, but it can bring it can improve the understanding, I think, for the person who's never played the game about what exactly the experience of that game is going to be like, and sharing that with other developers so that they can see where the bar has been set.
Mm-hmm.
That's my little suggestion for
Thank
today.
you.
Well, we're at the end of our time. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it up?
No, no. Thank you very much for this interview. This is my first interview about an article, so I'm very happy and very glad and honored to have this opportunity.